Spencer, would you mind introducing yourself for us, please?
Of course. Good morning, guys. So my name is Spencer Lyon. For those that aren't aware, in 2012, I started my own brand called Gully Arms, which was an online streetwear vintage clothing brand. Started from a bedroom, and while I was studying at like De Montfort University in Leicester, it started to take off quite a lot. Ended up having to employ a lot of people, and for the last 12 years, my mission has been saving as many items sustainably and building a family business with my mum by the seams of it. So that's sort of me in a nutshell currently.
Hello everyone. I just want to thank everyone for your ongoing support of this podcast, helping us reach our goals people only dreamed of achieving in a year, but we managed to do it in a space of 4 months. So I'm really greatly appreciative of that. And to carry on that streak, I would like all of you that haven't already to subscribe and like the video. This will help us push our content out to more brand new people, educating them and making them part of our community. So thank you so much for watching. I enjoy the episode.
Oh, is it great? So how long have you actually been reselling?
So my journey started probably 2012 to just before 2012. So it's actually interesting. So Marge, who is my mum, for those that are unsure when I mentioned Marge, she actually introduced me into charity shops. And for the most time, I was quite dubious about it. Like, I guess back in 2012, around about 12 years ago, going into a charity shop seemed like a bit of a strange way to like approach going to buy. Like she was trying to get me into it. So I kind of went with her at that point, and in like 2012 started to go with it and realized what you could actually find in a charity shop. I mean, back then you was finding Nike sweatshirts for like £1 to £2. So it's completely different territory. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And the business cog started to turn. And I started my journey on ASOS Marketplace. So that's like a friend introduced me to it at the time, and I started to run on ASOS Marketplace. And from 2012, it sort of just ran from there, really.
Hmm. How often would you say you go live on Tilt then? Because I see you quite regularly.
I go live. So what I've got into the habit of doing, so it's actually interesting. So recently I'd been doing longer streams and less times. And then I realized that what people prefer to see is you every day in a short burst. Because I think like there's such a thing as too much of a good thing. And if people see so much of you, then it's like it might take away the impact of like getting good deals and getting good prices. So I find like doing 1 hour a day every day keeps enough of an intriguement there. But the live stream part of selling is, I don't know if this might be a question, but it's completely different to like uploading products and selling.
Hmm.
It's
Oh,
incredibly different.
hmm. So why did you actually start? Like, what were your motivations with it?
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Sweets. Everyone likes them. Some people like mainstream brands, and some people like small family-owned brands. But my favourite are a small family-owned brand called All Things Candy. All Things Candy are a small family-owned business prioritising in selling pick and mixes. In these pick and mixes, you can get a whole range of sweets anywhere from sour sweets to normal gummies and so much more for the low cost of £1. My personal favourites are the Bubs Mix. These contain 1 kilogram of vegan sourced sweets from Sweden for the low cost of £10. So make sure to check them out, as they are a brand new business and yet still supplying great products to all their customers. I will leave their socials and their website in the link in the description. Make sure to check them out. Have a very good day. Now back to the video.
In terms of just to resell,
Yeah.
totally honestly, I have an obsessive personality in nature, and I think that I liked with secondhand. The whole point of what it is you do is like if you build a business from it, you need more items. So it's like it's not like selling items that have one of 1,000 where you kind of take an item and you upload it. Like you need lots of products in order to like build a business with it. So like it kind of sat in line with my obsessive nature where I was just like, the more I keep buying, the more I keep selling, the more items I'll keep having. And like I ended up getting up to about 15 to 18,000 individual items in the warehouse capacity at its maximum before I was like, okay, I have an obsessive problem. But in terms of, I think that what got me motivated by it was seeing the process of, I was directly responsible for what I bought and what I turned over. So I've never had a job before. Like this was like the hobby that turned to a passion that kind of like became a profession. So I guess I was just motivated by being obsessed by the process of it, really.
So I know you obviously sell on Depop as well. Would you say you get more sales on Tilt or Depop?
Oh, Till, I've actually closed my Depop in the last couple of weeks
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm trying to. So what I'm trying to do now is become more of. I'm not sure if you've seen with Till. What one thing that we do is we do like mystery bundles.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to do it. Essentially, why I do it is to break the stigma of like mystery boxes. Like a lot of people got like missold with those from a lot of different companies, which I don't need to go into or mention. And that way of selling is like almost being like a micro wholesaler, selling more items in a quicker bulk at maybe a lower cost. But it's my whole thing is it's an average game by a volume basis. So selling lots of items on average at a good price.
Right. So in your whole like reselling business,
Yeah.
what's the competition like?
Territorial. So when it started in 2012, a lot of people, and I can hold my hand up to this, when I started in 2012, a lot of people were very competitive. So there was a big blocking culture with people that started businesses. So a lot of people that were at the same levels on the same platforms like ASOS Marketplace, we would be all blocking each other so each other couldn't see like our kind of it was like strategic chess moves. It's like hiding people away from it. So the competition was built off too much territory and maybe too much like business insecurity. People were too scared that people were going to steal their sellers or steal their customers. Whereas now I think that it's like it's much more in a community space. So when it began, like the competition was it's good. Like you need competition in order to be motivated to keep going and to keep like trying different options. But there was almost like this very like school like mentality of people were blocking. And like I say, I hold my hands up. I've blocked people who I didn't want to see my stuff because I ended up. It got to a point sometimes where people would copy the even the styling tips I would do, or even try and get the same sort of items, try and get similar models. So it's like people were trying to replicate people that they thought were successful. So then it led to everyone to like kind of block and hide it away in a certain sense. So it's come a long way and matured over the years. But in 2012, people were definitely a lot more scared that they might have their customers taken from them by people who are doing it better.
Would you say that reselling is a profitable business, a profitable way to go? Or...
I think reselling is profitable dependent on how you approach the process of it. A lot of people will go and try and buy Stone Island, they'll try and buy Stussy, they'll try and buy very high-end brands. My whole point and premise is that those sort of brands don't actually give you a brilliant return on investment. So you buy into a lot of hype, get smaller return, maybe like a 2 to 3x, so a 2 times or 3 times its return on what you didn't spend. Whereas one of my premises is that the way to make being successful at reselling is to work on lower valued items that you can sell for more profit. And again, an average selling game by a volume basis. One of my friends who has a warehouse in Ipswich, he has like 150,000 individual items on eBay. And that's purely out of being an average game by a volume basis. For the last 10 years, all he's done is like have thousands and thousands of items. And those are the people that are the most successful at reselling, I would say.
Right. So do you suggest that someone should start reselling? Like, would you say it's a good way of making money?
I would say that one of the most important questions to ask yourself first is why you want to actually start reselling. So one of the reasons I did is that I fell into it by having a lot of time. I don't know about you, but I was one of those guys at school. I was pretty introverted. I like my own space. I like my own like area. And being in a charity shop and working on a business was like having your own thing that you could build behind the scenes. Whereas now over the time, I've realized how important the sustainable aspect is, and secondhand is like a good part of that. So that's one of my biggest driving forces. I think that reselling is good, but what a lot of people like don't understand is if you don't have a better approach of what you actually want to go into it for, if you just think I want to just sell these high end brands, I just want to do this because I think it's going to make money, it won't last the test of time. I think you have to have an underlying incentive beforehand rather than I need to do this to just make money. Like, what brands do you want to sell? Where do you want to sell? Most importantly, why do you want to sell those brands in those places? That would be my thing. I think anything is profitable, but the process and principle you have behind it is what makes it profitable.
What would you say is the best way for someone to start a reselling business?
The best way to start a reselling business is at low risk with low spend, trying to maximize as much as you can get. So what I would say to somebody is set yourself something that's an affordable amount that you're willing to not make a return on fast, maybe £50, maybe £100. Find some of the most effective ways to buy stock cheap. I would like to say charity shops. However, I don't think they're the best ways anymore. I think maybe car boots and certain other areas, or find a supplier who maybe will do you like £100. You've got to almost work on a small scale, trial the process. Like if you spent 50 to £100 and you made £150 back in 2 weeks, was that £50 profit worth the 2 weeks of work? But you won't know that if you don't try it. So I think trying it at low spends, seeing how it actually works, and then reviewing that kind of process back.
Right. So, what do you think are some of the main obstacles when it actually comes to reselling?
The main obstacle is that everything you do is a one-of-one basis. So say like each individual item has to be photographed, it has to be uploaded, it has to be like stored in a warehouse or in a room or on a rail, has to be bagged up. It's like a really tedious process because it's all on a one-to-one basis. So like again, when I use the analogy of like somebody who might just have an independent store where they have this t-shirt and they've got 500 of it, they can sell 500, but they only have to do the process once. Whereas if I was a vintage seller, I've got 500 of them to do 500 times the processes for everything. So I say one of the biggest obstacles is the fact that if you don't like tedious tasks, like doing lots of like repetitive things, like if you're not able to list, I mean, we used to list 200 items a day, and it's like every day somebody coming in and like having to do 200 items. So it's like you have to be happy with the tedious tasks, and you have to actually enjoy that because it's like a big part of what secondhand reselling is all about.
If
Right.
anyone in our audience wanted to start a reselling business, where would you say the most appropriate point is to start?
Well, without a shameless plug, I'd say one of the most appropriate places would be to watch some of my YouTube content about helping you to resell and understand that. But most importantly, if that would, I generally say that's why it's a good baseline because one of the things the reason why I do that is because I never had that when I started, and I realized how important it is for people. Like I didn't realize how much information that is to really learn and understand. Like it's not about going and like saying you got that Lyon and Scott polo and going, I'm going to put this on Depop tomorrow. I'm going to try and sell it now. It's like there's just such a process behind it, and it just comes down to like the intention. I think that like where you sell on different platforms is all relative to so many different things. It's understanding what reselling is, I guess, and just understanding like what that process is. So yeah, I would say go and check out the YouTube and learn a bit on that, and then come back and I'll help you out.
All right. So, let's say there was someone my age who, didn't really make much in the way of money. What would you say is a good starter budget for reselling?
Well, I mean, the common thing of like living within your means, it depends what money you have. Like, again, I always say it's money that you've got to be willing to lose. It's not necessarily that you would lose it, but the issue is especially with like many different ways, you could go to a wholesaler and spend £100 on, say, some nice outerwear jackets, like some Columbia North Faces. He could end up selling you loads with like rips and tears on it, and you might have to, you might not have somebody who could help fix it. Like for me, that's why I employed my mum, Marge, because she had a team of people that were good. Like older women are great at fixing things. And that was one thing I realized about secondhand and vintage. You're buying stuff that someone's owned before. So like you actually need that process of like somebody to fix it. So I would say honestly, a budget as like 50 to £100. You could even do like look at how many people popularized like £20 charity shop hauls. That whole idea is an inspiration for you to go, let's see what I can do with £20. Like I only started from £20 my whole business. Nobody gave me any money to build it. When I got my first student loan, I bought a computer and then I just bought stock with it. So I just anything I got invested like that. So I think you could start with as little as £20. You just got to trust the process.
What would you say that you enjoy most about reselling personally? Is it knowing that you're doing the greater good for people?
That's a good question. What do I enjoy the most about it? Over the years, it's changed because I come from, so I like did like photography and video editing. That's what I've done for my whole life, really, been like an editor and like working in creative. So my biggest thing I loved was using that creative like mindset to sort of get models, get cool clothes, and create a concept. So when I was doing a brand, it was creating a feel. So it's like I wanted people to look at Gully Garms and go, I want to be like these people. And it was all because of what I'd instilled with the mindset behind the scenes. But now now wanting to go into more of like being a personal brand content creation, it's like you said, it's the actual people, the amount of sort of benefit you get from buying secondhand and sustainably. Like, just as like one fact I like to reel off is, it's like every time you buy a new pair of denim jeans, it's like 2,700 liters of fresh drinking water to actually make a new pair of denim jeans. And that's one pair that if you bought secondhand, you half that water usage every time. And I think like in that mindset, you go, we all live in the same, like we all live on the same planet. We may as well all respect it in the same way. And I think being in a position that now reselling can open that door to go, yeah, I can actually use that to help give insight to people. I think that might be the best thing about it.
Hmm. So you were on about your, earnings earlier. How much have you actually made so far, would you say? Right, a rough estimate.
How much have I made? Well, see, this is interesting. So how much I've made versus how much I've made is totally different. Like the business that I had, like Gully Garms, it was making 7 figures a year, but I wasn't generally generating that for myself, because one of the biggest things I've professed for the longest time is reinvest on the reinvest. The only reason I could scale is that some people might get £100,000 in their bank account and go, that's mine. Whereas mine was, that's £100,000. That's going back into buying more stock. That's going buying into investing stuff. So over the years, I generated, it's that like millions of pounds have been generated, hundreds. I mean, I sold over 1 million individual products on the internet. So they didn't all sell, even if they sold for £1, that'd be 1 million. But what I made versus what I turned over are two completely different perspectives. So what I generated for the company was a lot, but what I made for me was, I've never been about personally generating that for me. And I think that there would have been better strategies that I could have made more money for me, but I invested in the process. And unfortunately, with COVID and Brexit, I had to face different obstacles that I maybe wasn't aware were going to come. And then nobody knew how to handle those two things that came, Brexit and COVID.
Hmm. So what obstacles did you actually like encounter with things like Brexit and things like that? Like what individual problems?
It's a great question. So the first one with Brexit. So pre-Brexit, 50% of our audience were in Europe. So France, Denmark, Germany, Spain, all those sorts of countries. What happened once we left Brexit is that we couldn't ship to those countries in the same capacity. Every single like legal entity of like how you could ship to different countries changed. The price went up. And then once the price on shipping goes up, customer loyalty is then questioned, because it's like, if you're paying more on shipping, how much do you value the company you're buying from? Maybe they can, someone in Switzerland's maybe like, maybe there's a guy that sells it already in Switzerland, so I don't need to go and outsource buying it from there. So Brexit caused that. And what COVID caused is, COVID caused everybody that was inside to realize that they could maybe try this as well. Like, think about it, being a secondhand reseller, anybody can do it, if as long as you've got clothes in a wardrobe. Like, you can literally you could get your like clothes from your wardrobe right now, put them on Depop today. You might wear them, but somebody could buy something that you want to wear. And that caused a big disruptancy, because so many like micro little communities were starting to build their own businesses, and bigger businesses that had got like premises and staff and stuff were probably like spending a lot more money to maintain it, whereas the guy from a bedroom has no overheads. I would say one of the most profitable times is being from a bedroom, because there's zero overheads. Now it's like maybe 5 grand a month I have to earn just to maintain the premises and the people and the place. So it's like, it's completely different blocks really. But they were the two things. I think COVID and Brexit, they were probably the biggest challenges. And I did a bit of a stupid thing, because I employed friends. And I think that business and pleasure is something that should always be kept in some sort of like, you don't really want to blur the lines between what a friend is and what an employee. And at the time, I guess with how Gully sort of grew, like I went from turning over X amount to being at university, making more than the people teaching me, thinking, what on earth's going on, to then turning over, being 19 and seeing like hundreds and hundreds of grands and going, okay, I like the idea of what I'm doing, but I need to employ friends, I need to employ people. And I just had a community of people around me, but friends, the issue with that is that all those people that I've worked with, I'm not directly friends with now. And I think that speaks a lot more about that as a decision to employ them. So, but I sit here in a good reflective point. So I think that the friends, the COVID and the Brexit, they were the kind of three main points that intervened.
Do you change what you sell based on the current season?
At the minute, import clothing based on a sustainable process. So if anything, I probably get things that are out of season. Because I would say the best way to visualize what my process is I'm trying to be the secondhand version of TK Maxx. So I'm trying to be a sustainable outlet store that can give people good value, good brands, authentically checked, authentically pressed, washed and dried at like a complete fraction of the price, just because the way I source stock is in a sustainable practice. So I used to, a lot of the time what we did was we would buy for seasons when we had a brand, but now with live streaming, as you can see, it's two different kind of capacities. It's like fast, it's like conveyor belt of clothes. It's like getting them in, getting them out, and people will still buy them regardless. So yeah, now it's less about seasons and just more about the sustainable process.
So do you have, like, let's say 3 or 4 tips you want to give someone who wants to start in the reselling business?
3 or 4 tips. Okay, so I would say number one tip, it's what I'd say with most people is it's the first thing is it's just the understanding. I know that most people go, what do you mean? But it's like you've got to just break down the whole thing of what you want to do. What do you want to sell? Why do you want to sell it? Where do you want to sell it? Understand your own like internal ecosystem of how you actually want to go forward with it. Like create the blueprint for how you want to go forward. I would say try and fail a few times, because the mistakes you make and learn from really help kind of like understand. I think that with that as a tip more so, I would say don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to like experiment. Like I said before, with maybe spending £50 on a first test run and getting some items that you can't fix. That experience will teach you something about what you've just invested, and you will learn that moving forward. So I would say try and learn things, try and learn from the failures pretty quick. And number 3 with being a reseller is maybe just being mindful with who you share your experience of what you're doing with. Like, don't get too trigger happy telling everybody what you want to do and where you want to go. Figure out where you want to be, what you want to do, understand it, and then share it, I guess, share it accordingly to the right people who are in the right vicinity of you.
I know you obviously you resell and you do editing. How do you manage all of that together? Because that must occupy a lot of your time.
I work, Kyle, 18 hours a day. I mean, I was just editing before this, so this is day 142 of a YouTube video every day, plus live streaming, consultancy. Again, I think this is the thing that people don't see behind the scenes is somebody might see a 5-minute YouTube video or an hour on a stream and hear a lot of stuff, but I mean it with no exaggeration. Every minute I'm not in these moments of presence on here, all I'm doing is working, editing, ideas, like doing business stuff, because that's the real nature of what it takes to kind of like maintain like this sort of thing. It's a constant grind, and yeah, it's nice to be in control of like all the different aspects too. So managing it is still being figured out.
I must say I do love your videos, and I know you upload every day at 6:30, I believe.
Yeah, every day, and I'm just trying to improve the quality of it. So yeah, but I've been editing since I was about 13, so I've edited for the last 17, 18 years. I used to do YouTube content before. I don't know if you guys like, almost like there's a guy called Ray William Johnson on YouTube where it's like he cuts like what TikTok is, but before, like watching little like you've been frame style clips. I used to do that about 2006, so about 6 or 7 years before I did Gully. So I've just always been making content. I don't think there's been a day gone by.
All right. So I think we've made it for all the questions.
I believe so.
That was a great interview. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Happy with what we've got. You want any other little bits you want me to add for any points of content? Are we all good?
I think
I
it's
think
the editing. You see, I don't have a clue what I'm doing with
hang on.
editing.
Well, anyway, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you for your time,
No,
Spencer.
I appreciate you both. Thank you so much.